Hey guys, what's going on? Excoundrel here. Welcome to the channel. I'm doing another TFT walkthrough guide today. I'm going to be talking about a game that I played here. It is in 2x. I know a lot of people don't quite like the 2x videos, but the reason I do the 2x videos is because I often record my games when I'm just casually playing, and then when I get a good one, I want to use it, so I kind of like don't want to do a 1x talk over because it can get a bit slow and boring. I'd rather do 2x, so the video is shorter for you guys, but you get the information the same way. I am about one game away from Diamond. I have a 70% top 3 ratio right now. I've actually really had a very, very good run in TFT so far. And I've kind of, I think, should hit Diamond today, and then I'm hopefully looking to go for Master by next week. I think I've got the skills necessary to do so. I think I've climbed very quickly, and I think a lot of the lessons that I learned from Auto Chess are applicable in TFT. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm doing in this video, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how I got to the comp that I got to. Now, as per usual, what I do in the early game is basically just take as many pairs as physically possible. Now, when I've got okay, so basically Rebels aren't very good right now, so it's very unlikely that I'm going to be running much further than a 2-star Ziggs. That's why I don't pick up another Ziggs here in the shop. Why am I not picking up the Zaya? Because I want the Mordekaiser, so I'm hoping that with 2-2-stars I end up winning the first round and I can get that extra gold to pick up the Mordekaiser. Poppy is actually quite useful, so keeping Poppy around is actually a pretty good thing to do. Poppy is just a very, very, very good Vanguard unit. She's better than Leona, I think, individually. And so Poppy, I just think, is a pretty solid unit to keep around. And I put Mordekaiser on because he's also a Vanguard, and Mordekaiser in general is a strong unit. He can also be a carrier for a lot of items if you don't intend on using many further items in the future. But yeah, really just looking to play win streak here with the Vanguard frontline and then just some kind of DPS. Ziggs is really good early. Ziggs has got a very high single target damage early on, which obviously becomes less and less relevant the further that we go. But Ziggs has got very high damage sort of later on into the earlier on into the game. So what am I doing here? Sold off some units to hit to 9 gold. That is assuming that I'm going to get a win from this particular round here. Obviously, I will sell further if I need to. But yeah, so essentially I'm keeping it at 9 gold and keeping the units that I want to keep around on the bench. And I get to 10 gold by round 2-3, which is a good milestone. It's a good thing to aim for. 10 gold by round 2-3 is a good thing to have because it allows you to kickstart your economy. Whichever way you're planning on building your economy, win streaking, lose streaking, or even just middling or bouncing, as they call it in TFT, you know, I think just having 10 gold before the first carousel round, that the one after the very first one, is really important. So you see here that I actually pick up a Mordekaiser with a Giant's Belt on him, which is actually pretty good because there are two things that I can do with Giant's Belt with Mordekaiser. I can either combine the other Giant's Belt and get a Morellonomicon, or, which by the way, Morellonomicon is a very good item on Mordekaiser, or I can combine the, sorry, not Morellonomicon, Warmogs, but Warmogs is okay on Mordekaiser, 3-star especially, but I can combine it with a needlessly large rod and get a Morellonomicon as well, which is also an incredibly good item on Mordekaiser. So you might see that my game plan here is basically some Vanguards and Star Guardians. That's the early game that I'm playing. Now, if I get a 2-star Mordekaiser, I do want to make use of Vanguards. So I think Vanguards are a good frontline for a couple of compositions right now. Vanguards are pretty good for snipers specifically, but you can also play Vanguard's Jace, which is a very good composition also. Does require some specific itemization in my opinion, but I think nonetheless pretty solid. But right now, Vanguards are just a very good mid-game comp. They actually deal with a lot of different compositions really well, just because they have a lot of armor. And so, often you don't really find that sorcerer compositions like come online super early. They're more of a mid-game strength. They do have some good early game, but obviously Cinder is your main worry. And as long as you position well against an Ahri and you don't get caught out by one whole Ahri ability, then I genuinely think it's okay to sort of run Vanguards as your main frontline tank in the early game. So what I'm going to be looking for now is, sorry, just taking a sip of drink. What I'm going to be looking for now is specifically looking for the rest of my Vanguards. So I don't want Leona. She's like the worst Vanguard, I think, unless you're running Cybernetics, of course. And obviously she is competed for when it comes for Cybernetics. I'm going to be looking for my Wukong, of course, and my Jace. And then when I get them, that's my front line sorted. Now, there are two ways that I can play the Vanguard's sniper composition. Now, obviously, I don't have particularly good Jace items here, and I find a Wukong, by the way. So that basically confirms to me, yeah, we're going Vanguards. There are two ways that you can play. You can play a 3-star Mordekaiser, and you stack him with things like Morellonomicon and some defensive items and just hope that he has the longevity to carry you. I do think that the later it goes, especially versus things like Void Sorcerer, so with like Kha'Zix and stuff, that gets a lot harder to do. But nonetheless, I think it's a pretty solid way to play Vanguards. You can play stack Jhin, of course, in a Jhin sniper composition. The problem with Jhin is that you do need specific items for him, and I don't really have the items necessary for Jhin, I would say. So I'm actually starting to combine some of my items now, just because I do need to start using them. I always use it sort of in my head, the term use it or lose it. Eventually, you do have to start using your items. Now, Mordekaiser is a good carry for items in Vanguards. Like I said, he's probably one of the better carries if you're running from a carry point of view with Vanguards. But I also picked up mechs because in this lobby, I'm just obviously having a look at what people are going. A lot of people end up going mechs in this lobby right now. There's a few people like actually griefing and building mechs versus each other, and so therefore me going and transitioning to mechs at this point in the game, despite having 50 gold, is nigh on impossible to do, because mechs, if people are contesting mechs, you just cannot for the life of you beat people who have that comp. And especially if someone's getting the mechs early on, it can be more difficult for you to find them, and then you're competing with them to sort of try and find the 3 stars. That's basically what makes mechs bad. If one other person is going for them, it's really hard to actually, you know, compete with them. So I find a Morellonomicon here, which is actually really good for my Mordekaiser. However, I have finally come unstuck, I think. No? Yeah, I finally come unstuck versus Isaiah, who was untouchable. But my win streak lasted for a lot of rounds, and it got me to 50 gold really easily. Now, leveling strategy for this composition. Go to 7 and then go to 8, basically, because your main carries are going to be the Mordekaiser and the Jhin, but you don't want to hyper roll for a Mordekaiser, because there aren't many other units that you're actually looking for that are going to be relevant for you. So you're really just looking to get to level 7, try and find a 2-star Wukong, try and find a 2-star Jhin as quickly as possible. And I think I kind of made the decision that actually snipers is probably the way to go here, because I have got a Last Whisper, which is actually a pretty good item for Jhin in general. Last Whisper is decent. And I finally get my 4 Vanguards. So my 4 Vanguards are now set up. We're looking for essentially another Jhin, an Ashe, and I'm putting in Karma because I want the 3 Darkstar as well. 3 Darkstar is actually a really nice little addition for any kind of Vanguard sniper composition, because if you get a 3-star Mordekaiser and you stack him and all the rest of the Darkstars die, it makes his carry potential much higher the later that you go. And you can see here I finally find the Jhin, I find the Karma, so I've actually got the Darkstar now, which is nice, and there's also the Ashe here to provide me with the snipers. This is the point in the game where I've now fully transitioned into Vanguard snipers. So let's talk about the decision-making process that got me here. I found a Poppy early on, I found a Mordekaiser too. Mordekaiser had some items on him. That's a good enough start for me to say, okay, Vanguard's probably a solid front line. No one else was contesting Vanguards either, so that's kind of what forced my hand in terms of going for Vanguards. Then when it comes to backlines, people were playing Sorcerers already, so I couldn't really play Vanguard Sorcerers, and no one was touching Jhin and no one was touching Ashe. So no one was playing Jhin, no one was playing Vanguards. It was basically the open composition for me. And I had items, and also you've got to think about the items that I had. I had a lot of defensive items, and there are not many compositions apart from Protectors or mechs that really make use of defensive items well. Yes, Cybernetics do, but I didn't have a good Cybernetic start, so I didn't play that. But generally, there aren't many other comps that make use of a really good defensive item start, other than maybe Vanguards, like I said, Vanguards, mechs, or Protectors. And then I had some very kind of mediocre, I guess, attack damage carry items. I did not have, for instance, a Infinity Edge. I only had that Last Whisper, like I said, and Last Whisper is like a situational item at best for a lot of compositions. But Jhin does make use of it because he's such a slow and high damage attack speed. He can actually do more damage by piercing with those individual shots. Plus, it actually helps burst through anybody else that's running a Vanguard frontline. Last Whisper is generally a bit more of an anti-Vanguard item. So we basically got here because of the fact that we started with Mordekaiser and Poppy, and then we realized very quickly that we couldn't transition into mechs because there was already some contesting going on with it. And we couldn't really play sorcerers because someone was already contesting it and we didn't have the items for it. And obviously we couldn't really then go into something like cybernetics because it was a little bit too late, and we didn't have the best items for it. So really I think we picked the best composition based on the items that we had. And I've added a Quicksilver to Jhin, by the way. That's just to be an anti-Blitzcrank bait. If anyone tries to bait out Blitzcrank with my Jhin, basically I'm just putting him with the Quicksilver to bait Zephyrs and bait Blitzcranks. Having a Quicksilver on a Jhin is actually really important, because if he does get Blitzcranked, that's your entire, like, basically entire lot down the drain. This is where I decided, okay, I'm not getting many Mordekaisers, so I'm not going to get a 3-star Mordekaiser here. And I was having a look at the rest of the compositions and thinking, okay, where do I go from this point forward? This guy's playing Star Guardian Sorcerer, by the way, which I think is a very, very good composition. It does kind of rely on you getting a Seraphs, and it kind of relies on a 3-star Syndra and a 3-star Nico. I do think those things are, like, non-negotiable when it comes to Star Guardian Sorcerer. But also another reason why I couldn't really play the Sorcerer composition. So I added in the Soraka purely for the Mystic bonus right now. But you're going to see me change up my 8th unit quite a lot this game. There was a lot of shimmying about of my 8th unit because I was kind of changing up depending on what I was playing up against. And I found the Lulu here as well. And I've got more items to commit. So I've actually got a Seraphs, which is probably the best thing that I could do in this situation. I add a Runans over to my Jhin, which isn't a half bad item either. And now I start finding all these Wukongs, and I'm like, ooh, okay, right. I'm not going to get a 3-star Mordekaiser this game. I've got a higher chance of finding 4 costs than I have of finding 2 costs. Maybe what we do is we just have Mordekaiser hold the items for the time being until we get another 2-star Mordekaiser. Because we should be able to find another 2-star Mordekaiser. And this is where I was like, oh my god, yes, Wukong, definitely 3-star Wukong. This is where we find the items to the Mordekaiser, and we find another 2-star Mordekaiser, and then we just transfer the items over to the Wukong, because the items that are good for Mordekaiser are also pretty good for Wukong. And imagine a 3-star Wukong with a Warmogs, a Morellos, and then another item that I find. Because obviously on the next carousel, I could probably find another good item. So that's basically the decision-making process that I had. And I thought, whoa, okay, that's pretty solid. Now, obviously, I'm losing quite a lot here. I end up adding in the Thresh, because I think just adding in the Thresh is probably better. Just because there isn't actually that much magic damage that I'm going up against. And actually giving Chrono over to Jhin and to Wukong would be pretty solid. So I decided to add in the Thresh because I thought Chrono was probably a little bit more relevant here. But you can see I'm tanking my HP before this neutral round. And actually, I made the decision that you're going to see me drop down to about 20-something. I made the decision that, okay, soon enough I'm going to have to start rolling down. Like if I drop below 30 HP, I think that's a good enough place for me to start to roll down. Item wise here, the best thing that I think I can take is Spear of Shojin, because it works so well for Wukong, so that's what I'm going to take. And if I get a 3-star Wukong, that's just like Wukong ulting all over the place, which is just absolutely ridiculous. So my game plan here at this point forward is literally 3-star the Wukong. The reason being is that I actually don't have a very good carry Jhin, and you can see me rolling down because I'm specifically looking for my Wukongs. I'm also obviously looking for a 2-star Thresh, which would be nice, but I'm specifically just looking for my Wukongs, because if I'm completely honest with you, it's going to be very difficult to win this, I think, from this position, because I really don't have I don't have a strong Jhin. My Mordekaiser's not 3-star. Yeah, I'm specifically looking for that 3-star Wukong. So immediately I do find it. Like, I did set myself up for this, so that's great. I find the 3-star Wukong. I put a 1-star Mordekaiser in because that's fine. I literally just want the Vanguard bonus. And it's not a big deal to have a random 1-star Mordekaiser when I've got a 3-star Wukong with Morellos, Shojins, and Warmogs. And I just want to show you, like, even versus Protectors, how much damage he's doing. It is... I mean, actually, my Jin's doing more damage, if I'm honest with you. My Jin's actually doing more damage, which is crazy. I was not expecting that. But he does have the Last Whisper, so he's doing a lot of piercing damage. But Wukong just has so much CC. He survives for so long and is applying Morellos with his ability, which is just beyond broken. Honestly, beyond broken. We end up picking up a Runans here, which, to be honest with you, is just going to go on Ashe. Ashe is just going to take this Runans for me. I think she's probably the best person to have it. She can be another threat from the back line. She does a decent amount of damage. She's not really like pushing the boat out in terms of damage, but she does a decent amount of damage. And when it comes to Thresh, you just want to have units on your bench which are pretty solid. So I've got another 2-star Jhin who Thresh can pull on. Thresh can pull on another Thresh as well, so I get 2 Threshes being pulled on at the same time. But look at the 3-star Wukong, just absolutely monstering his way through these comps. It's just insane. And look at the damage that he did there, was just unbelievably broken. So yeah, 3-star Wukong became my win condition. Because I didn't really have anything else. He became my win condition because I didn't really have anything else to play. I did not have the best items for Jhin. They were okay, but they were a bit suboptimal. And I didn't find the 3-star Mordekaiser. But because the economy game that I played, I went to 8 and then started picking up the Wukongs, and no one else was playing Wukong, by the way. 3-star Wukong became my win condition, and just look at him go. The guy's a mentalist. That monkey alongside my Jhin when he's kind of untouched is just doing some extreme work. So I rolled down here. Probably the best thing that I could have done was just pick up random 4-cost units. But what I was doing was randomly trying to find a 3-star Jhin, because I thought a 3-star Jhin could maybe add an extra win condition for me. But I didn't really need it with the fact that my Wukong was just so bloody strong. You can see the Protector guy here. I knock him out, unfortunately. Goodbye, Protectors. Morello's is basically a Protector counter, you know, as an item. Morello's is a Protector's counter. In this situation, I end up picking up the Hand of Justice, which I'm just going to give straight over to my Ashe, because the Hand of Justice is a pretty solid item. And you know, if I get a bit of extra damage out of my Ashe, that's always a good thing. And because this is basically going to be the last round for me, or at least close to the last round for me, I start positioning specifically for mech infiltrators. Like, I want my Wukong to be taking out the guy's infiltrators. I don't want him to get stuck on the mech. You see here, unfortunately, my Jhin did end up getting burst down, and my Wukong then got focused and ulted by the mech. Just wasn't good enough for me to win this particular round. I thought I was out, and I end up like having 1 HP. This is the problem with Mech Infiltrator, obviously. It's a really tough composition to play against. I was looking for a 3-star Jhin, couldn't find it, but that's perfectly fine. I've now just got like a load of Jhins. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to shield my Jhin instead, and I'm going to have Wukong be the main focus of the infiltrators at the back line, which is what I've done. I think he tried to get his Shaco to jump to my Jhin, but unfortunately it didn't work, and I think that might have ended up costing him the game, because now my Wukong basically just gets through by the very sliver of his teeth. He pulls me through, and I end up beating the Mech Infiltrator player, which is just brilliant. I had a good game this game. It was really good.